Chabad services, but I got in contact with an Israeli woman who was running it, and she was secular Israeli, and she just happened to be in Northern California. She'd married a black guy and gotten divorced, and here she was in remote Northern California. But because she knew Hebrew, she was running things. So I call her up and say, "Oh, I'm so excited about Judaism. I want to convert to Judaism." And she's going, "Huh? Why are you so excited about Judaism? I don't get it." I said, "Well, let me share these Torah tapes with you." And I shared Dennis Prager with her, and she started listening. She got really excited about it. So she and her husband, who was not Jewish, and he ended up converting Orthodox. They ended up moving to an Orthodox synagogue in Sacramento. At least two of their friends, who I also shared these tapes with, they moved to San Jose next to an Orthodox synagogue, became Orthodox Jews. In large part, they were inspired by my enthusiasm about Judaism and by the Jewish materials that I was excited about. And I did my initial conversion through a Reform rabbi. I joined a secular Jewish organization. I made friends with secular Jews. I shared my excitement about Judaism and the books that got me excited about Judaism with my secular Jewish friends, who, in part because of my enthusiasm, ended up becoming Orthodox. I eventually moved to Orlando, Florida, next door to a conservative synagogue. I went to minyan every time they had a minyan. I went to class every time they had a class. I went to Talmud class every time they had Talmud class, pretty much. I attached myself to a Jewish community. I slowly began assimilating into it. Then I moved to Los Angeles. I wanted to move to a Jewish community. I moved to Los Angeles. And it took me about 3 years in Los Angeles before I finally settled down and moved into Pico Robertson, and where there are 100 Orthodox synagogues within walking distance. And I got kicked out of an Orthodox conversion program. I got kicked out of different Orthodox synagogues. I eventually found an Orthodox conversion program. It took me a long time. I made it through. So I would say, if you're living in Carlsbad, you're living in a remote area, and if you want to connect to Yiddishkeit, do the best you can. Connect. If there's a secular Jewish community, connect to it. If there's a Reform temple, connect to it. If there's a conservative synagogue, connect to it. If there's an Orthodox synagogue, connect to that. And then get into Jewish life. Just start studying. There's so much material on the internet. Just connect, and then you may want to take it in steps. It's not all or nothing. I know Rabbi Rabs completely disagrees with much of what I said.
Completely.
But I just wanted to give my point of view. And this week's Torah portion.
Now it's my turn to use.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So you just keep saying your piece.
I'll just keep saying my piece. So yeah, I know Shira and Leslie, you were, offended by many of the things that I said, but I think Judaism's a big tent. Find your way in, connect to some community that speaks to you in Jewish life. There are so many ways to get excited about being Jewish. From renting Jewish-themed movies to reading great novels such as by Isaac Bashevis Singer or Philip Roth. Connect to the community that's closest to you. So I connected to a secular community, and I connected to a Reform community, and I connected to a conservative synagogue, and now I live in a neighborhood where there are 100 Orthodox synagogues around me. So connect through Jewish philosophy. If philosophy is your thing, there's so many great books on Jewish philosophy. Carlsbad is remote from Orthodox Judaism, from strongholds of Torah. Carlsbad is remote. So if your thing is dance, I'm sure there's Jewish-themed dance. I'm not singing a different tune, Leslie. I'm saying I am totally cool with Orthodox Judaism being very demanding. I'm totally cool with conversion to Orthodox Judaism being very difficult. I'm totally cool with Orthodox communities keeping up high standards, being expensive and difficult. That's fine with me. And I'm also cool with failure. I see nothing wrong with attempting to convert to Orthodox Judaism and failing. I see nothing wrong with dating someone who's way out of your league and failing. Taking on trying to learn a language and failing. I think we all have to pick ourselves up from failure. So I think it's okay if people have high standards, we make an attempt to try to meet those standards and fail. I think that's all right. I don't think it has to be all or nothing. you pick yourself up, and then you connect with a group that you can connect with. So there are Orthodox synagogues where I'm just not going to fit. There are Orthodox synagogues where Rabs is just not going to fit in, and they might just give us the boot. And that's okay. I think they should keep their standards, and we should just move on and find a community that is good for us. So this week's Torah portion is Vayet Hanan, and I find it interesting that Moses blames the Jews for not getting in. Like, he doesn't say, "Oh, maybe I made some mistakes." He keeps saying, because of you, God is not letting me into the promised land. And we touched on that last week, so you don't have to repeat unless you want to. And then I find it also interesting that Moses is just dying to get into the promised land. Dying. Here's the greatest Jew ever, dying to get into the promised land. Here's the second and third greatest Jews ever sitting before you right now.
Oh, no.
Here we are living in Los Angeles. Like, we could pick up, go to the promised land. Like, Moses would have given his right arm to get into the promised land. Rabs and I, we could move to the promised land next week.
Yeah, but
we choose to live in the diaspora. So what's the difference?
The difference is back then they didn't have a secular state of Israel. They were going to go in and put in a Torah state.
So do you think Moses would have said, "Oh, I can't go in if it's going to be a secular state"?
Right. I mean, if Moses, if they were going to move into the state of Israel and build discos that are going to be open on Friday nights with Nahal Shabbos, everybody's going to desecrate Shabbos by dancing boo boo boo, and all this, and there would be a pig sold at King Pork or whatever it was in Tel Aviv, and all this going on, and I think he would have had a meltdown.
Right. You would
have heard him screaming, and then he would be like, "We're not going in there if this is going to happen." He would say, "Nobody's going in." So it's not, you can't compare us to him, because if they had a Torah state there right now, a real Torah state, I would consider going, because I was already there. I wouldn't have left. I probably wouldn't have left.
Well, what's so bad about discos and people eating? Why does that have to bum your ride?
Okay, well,
why can't it pimp your ride? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, right now they're going to sue you with no hats, I don't know. This is my thing. It's like, my thing, like we talked last week about the Gush Katif, where they swept the Jews out of the homes, right?
Yeah.
My attitude is with these religious Zionist people, it's like, get a clue. Right after that happened, you should have taken a clue that the state of Israel doesn't give a shit about you. The religious people, they don't care about you, and basically you're free to leave. Right. So at that point, you're still have your insane love affair with the state of Israel and wave the blue and white flag and all that. I think you're naive. They don't care about you. Why do you care about them? Either cut off your relationship. It's like they need intervention at this point. It's like it's getting sick. It's like this codependency thing. That's how, some shrink would analyze it. They don't care about the Frummies. If you just quit caring about them. It's like either be just like everybody else who's like me, like non-Zionist, or leave the country. Because your dream is something in your head, and it's a fantasy at this point. The government doesn't give a shit, and they're happy to make laws against Frummies. They don't have a problem with it. It's not a religious state. It has nothing to do with Judaism.
This is going to be one of those weird transitions. You're going to look at me and go, huh?
Oh, is this the Lakewood Rob again?
No.
Okay.
Like if 10 is like ecstatic happiness.
10?
Yeah.
Okay.
And 0 is sunk in the deepest depression.
Yeah, scale of 1 to 10.
Where would you say you've been at the last few years?
In my happiness?
Level.
Well, I was happy when I was dating women.
Yeah.
I was happy when I got engaged.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to say, overall?
Yeah.
It's really hard to put a number because there were happy times and there were really bad times.
But overall. Give me how it varies. Some of it was 6.
Living, I'm going to say when there's no women in my life whatsoever, right? It's a 0. It's an absolute 0.
Yeah.
And 0 is probably not low enough.
Yeah.
you know, when I was like dating that woman for 2 years, and
Yeah.
like it was a hope that this
Yeah,
was going to
yeah.
get to be something good.